The Colorado Avalanche have one of the most talented lineups in the NHL and have completely rebounded from a very slow start this season. Coming up, I'm going to talk about 3 reasons why I think they're a very real threat to win the Stanley Cup, and one big question I have that could hold them back from going all the way. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, so today we're going to be talking about the Colorado Avalanche. Once again, one of the best teams in the NHL, incredibly talented lineup. And while they got off to a pretty slow start this year and struggled out of the gate, they have really gotten back to being the Colorado Avalanche that we were expecting to see over these past couple of months. And are right again in the thick of it in the Western Conference and in the NHL. And today we're going to be talking about 3 reasons why I think they're a legitimate threat for the Stanley Cup this year. And also one big question I have that could end up holding them back and just stop them from going all the way this season. So let's get into it here, taking a look at the Avalanche. They are right now 4th in the Central Division, but that's a little bit deceiving because they are just 5 points back of first place in the division, and they've also only played 27 games, which is one of the fewest games played totals to this point in the NHL season for any team. So they've got games in hand on pretty much everybody. So they're going to have a chance to make up some of those points with those games in hand. So while they're technically 4th right now, they're not that far out of first. And certainly another couple of wins and they'll be right up there near the top of the division. They're 17-8-2 on the year, 36 points, and have a plus 24 goal differential. Like I said, they did get off to a pretty slow start and were struggling in the first few weeks of the season, but they've really gotten it together and are back being the Colorado Avalanche that we all expected to see. So what truly makes them a contender? Well, there's a lot of things. This is one of the most talented lineups in the NHL, and right out of the gate, one of the first things for me is their superstars. They have some superstar players, and it's not just 1 or 2. They have a lot of very, very talented players. It obviously starts with Nathan MacKinnon. MacKinnon's one of the best players in the entire NHL. Real play driver, can score, can pass, really great speed, does it all. Incredibly talented player. They also have Cale Makar on the back end, who is one of the best defensemen in the NHL. So they've got an elite center, they've got an elite defenseman. And then the other 2 wings to go along with Nathan MacKinnon, Mikko Rantanen and Gabriel Landeskog, are not too shabby themselves. Makes up one of the best top lines in the entire league. And those are just a few of the many great players that Colorado has. There's a lot of other ones as well. Nazem Kadri is having the best year of his career. He's another great forward in their lineup. Andrei Burakovsky is very talented. Devon Taves on the back end is very, very good. This team is loaded with talent, and they're led by their superstar players. Their elite number 1 defenseman, Cale Makar, and their elite top line of MacKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog. When these guys are all healthy, it's one of the most talented superstar groups of any team in the NHL. And those are the kinds of players that can carry you in the playoffs and through the playoffs and can come up with the big goals when you desperately need them and can score the series clinchers in overtime. And just having that level of talent and these level of players in your lineup really does make Colorado a serious threat. And now, you might be saying, well, if all these players make them, are able to carry them in the playoffs and make them a Stanley Cup contender, why haven't they done it yet? Well, I mean, they haven't done it yet. You're right. That's a fair criticism of these top players of the Colorado Avalanche. They haven't done it. This is a team that hasn't gotten by the second round despite having all of this talent. But the point is that they have it. They have the talent. They have the ability. When these guys are playing at the top of their game, they're the kinds of players that can carry a team, that can be the game changers for a team that really puts them over the edge and can be the difference between going to the Stanley Cup Finals and losing in the second round. They haven't done it yet. You're 100% right, but they have the ability to do it. They have the talent and the skill level to do it. It's just about executing. It's about getting out there, playing at that level, and doing it in the playoffs. And they haven't done it yet, but for every team that makes the Stanley Cup Finals, at some point, they hadn't done it yet. And then there comes a year where they finally get over the hump and they finally do it and they finally do make it there. And this could very well be the year for the Colorado Avalanche. There's no guarantee that it is, but it could be. The talent and ability is there. We're going to have to wait and see what happens in the playoffs. Another thing with Colorado is their elite offense. They are the highest scoring team in the NHL. 4.22 goals for per game in the regular season so far. Now, that number is not going to keep up. There's no way they're going to keep up scoring 4.2 goals for per game. That is by far tops in the NHL, and honestly, it's an absolutely ridiculous number. An incredible amount of offense coming from the Colorado Avalanche here. But even as that number drops down and kind of regresses back to a more normal number for even an elite scoring team in the NHL, it's probably going to end up 3.6, 3.7 goals for per game, somewhere around there. Even as that number kind of drops back down, they're still going to be one of the top scoring teams in the NHL, and they truly have an elite offense. And obviously, we talk about the superstars that they have. That plays a big role in how they're able to score so many goals. But they've got really three lines that can score. They've got some really good defensemen that help out offensively and put up some numbers themselves, led by Makar, but also guys like Samuel Girard, Devon Taves. Those guys can really chip in offensively as well. This is a team that can outscore anybody, and obviously they've shown that in the season. They're the highest scoring team in the league so far. So, this team can put the puck in the net, and I fully expect them to continue putting the puck in the net at a very high rate, and that's going to be tough to beat for anybody come playoff time. It's going to be a full-on challenge, no matter who you are in the NHL playoffs, to try and shut down this Colorado offense. And you're never going to completely shut them down, but even just keep them down at a more reasonable level, that's going to be a big challenge in the playoffs for any team, no matter how good your defense or goaltending is. And lastly, the final thing here that for me that really makes Colorado a contender is that they've got to have the ultimate win-now mentality. This is one of the most win-now teams in the NHL. They're an extremely talented lineup. They've got a lot of great players. It's their time. If they're going to win, they've got to do it now. They've got to start making some deep playoff runs. They've got to start truly contending for cups because they're not going to be able to keep this team together forever. It's just not possible in the salary cap era of the NHL. And we already, at the end of this season, they've got some big contracts coming up. Andrei Burakovsky is up after this year. Nazem Kadri is up after this year. Val Nichushkin is up after this year. Both of their goaltenders, Darcy Kemper and Pavel Francouz, are up after this year. So they've got some decisions to make as far as the roster goes. They're not going to be able to keep everybody. This is the ultimate win-now team. Nathan McKinnon is up after next season, and he's going to be getting a big raise from his $6.3 million that he's making right now. That's going to be tough to fit under the cap. They've got some very difficult roster decisions to make, and it reminds me a lot of what's happened with the Tampa Bay Lightning over the past couple of years. You can only have so many good players before you run out of cap space, and that's what's happening with the Colorado Avalanche. They have a great roster, a great team, but you can only keep that together for so long before you run out of cap space and can't sign everybody, and that's what Colorado is going to be dealing with after this season and after next season, and they're going to have to start letting some guys go. So if they want to win with this group the way that it is right now, they need to win now. I mean, it's this year or next year. They've got to go out there and make some serious runs at the Stanley Cup because they're not going to have this talented of a group together for much longer, because ultimately the salary cap catches up with everybody and they're going to have to let some guys go, and they're just not going to have the same level of talent throughout their lineup that they have right now. So if there's ever a win now team in the NHL for this season, Colorado has got to be one of the biggest ones. And if they're going to get the job done and win a cup, they're going to have to do it here very, very quickly. So they've got to take that mentality into the playoffs and play with that sense of urgency and just bring that to the table every series throughout the postseason and see if that can help push them over the edge and finally get them past that second round. Now, finally, my one big question, what could possibly hold Colorado back? Well, the depth. Do they have enough in their bottom six? Do they have enough in their bottom D pair? Do they have enough in goal? Darcy Kuemper is a good goaltender. He's been a little shaky this year. He's not a great goaltender. It hasn't been this year, at least. Do they have enough goaltending? Do they have enough depth to really be a team that can go on a deep, deep run? Or are they a team that if they lose a guy or two out of the top six, all of a sudden starts to crumble? And I think that's something that we've seen with the Avalanche, where, they lose a guy here or there, and all of a sudden there's a big drop-off. Their bottom six doesn't really score a whole lot. If they lose, any of those superstar players that we've talked about so far in this video, is that going to kind of end up screwing this team? And, I wonder about that with the Avs, because they're very, very good when those guys are rolling and when they have those top guys putting up big numbers. But if they lose a guy or two to injury, or if those guys slow down at all a little bit, I don't know if they have enough secondary scoring to make up for that. And they've had guys miss time this regular season, and it hasn't really slowed them down at all. Most notably, Nathan MacKinnon. He's missed a good number of games, and they've been fine without him. But that's in the regular season. In a playoff series against another high-level team, let's say they're playing Minnesota, for example, or if they're playing Vegas potentially in the conference final or something like that, could they survive with somebody missing out of their top six? Could they survive with a top four defenseman being out and not really having a good replacement for them? Those are the questions that I have with Colorado this year. Do they have the depth? Their bottom pair, they have a good top four on D, but their bottom pair isn't exactly jumping off the roster sheet at you. Their fourth line isn't exactly jumping out off the roster sheet at you. Behind Darcy Kuemper, they really don't have much in goal. So if anything were to happen to Kuemper, that would probably be the end of their season. I do think that there are some depth issues with the Colorado Avalanche, and if they're not able to stay healthy heading into the playoffs or in the playoffs, I think that could lead to some big trouble for this Colorado team. But that's kind of the one big question I have that I think could end up holding them back. Overall, Colorado is a very, very good hockey team, as expected. They've got a ton of talent. They're led by some superstar elite players, incredibly good top line. And they're a team that's going to score a lot of goals and win a lot of games. There's no doubt about that, especially in the regular season. But there are some questions come playoff times. They haven't been able to make that playoff run yet. They've been knocked out in the second round and haven't been able to get by that with this current group. And, I do have questions about their depth, and if they were to lose somebody, or if that top line was to slow down in the playoffs, would they have other guys be able to step up and make up for that, or would that spell the end of their season? That's kind of the big question with the Avalanche. And there's no doubt about it, they're a talented team. They're certainly capable of going on a long run and contending for the Cup this year. But again, it's all about execution, and it's about doing it at crunch time when you need it the most. And that's what Colorado hasn't been able to do yet with this current core group, but maybe that changes this year. We're going to find out come playoff time. But that's what I've got on the Colorado Avalanche. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, our merchandise store, membership, and donation links are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.